The novel Big Fish and the Hollywood movie made from that novel are surely a tough act to follow, but Daniel Wallace's new book, Mr. Sebastian and the Negro Magician, is his best yet. I spoke with Daniel Wallace at the 11th Annual Alabama Literary Symposium in Monroeville, Alabama. Daniel, it's good to see you again.
Good to be here.
How long has it been? I think we talked about 3 or 4 years ago for this television show.
I don't know. You're in my dreams all the time, so.
You had just published Big Fish, and Big Fish had been out for a while, but you had just learned that there was to be a movie.
Okay.
And then there was a movie, and we haven't had a chance to talk about that. What role did you play in the script? And then especially I want to know about your acting career.
Yeah, because that's done, and we could talk about that in the past tense. The script was sent to me after John August wrote the first draft. We had met several months before he started and talked about the book and just talked about what he thought about it, what I thought about it. He recorded it. It was 3 hours of conversation on a rest area off of the I-95 between Raleigh and Washington, D.C., where we met. I know it sounds very clandestine, but he happened to be in D.C., and I live in Chapel Hill, so we met at a halfway point.
All right.
Talked, and it was very reassuring because he understood the book. He turned out to be a really intelligent guy, a great writer. He can do anything. And when he sent me the first draft, I didn't know what to think. I've never read a script before. Was so pleased with it, so pleased with what he'd done. And I didn't offer that many changes because I write books, I don't do movies, and that was his business. And I made a couple of suggestions, but it was not a collaboration at all. I just was an approver of his good work.
How did you feel? I think the thing that happened in the script, the thing that would distinguish the script from the novel would be what was left out. There was a good deal had to be left out. Mm-hmm. Did you have fatherly pangs about losing those bits of children?
Well, it's funny you say children because that's what John said. He said he felt like he had kidnapped my children and dressed them up in different clothes, which is fine with me, frankly. I think that's what we all do when we read a book. It's all in our own head. We all have different ideas of it. We don't see it the same way. A movie just happens to be sort of the historical marker of one person's vision of this book. And so I'm open to interpretation. He took what was workable, I thought, for the movie and put it in there. Left out a lot of the subtext, a lot of the mythic ideas that are in the book. But that's one of the great things about it. I think that the story can be appreciated without those elements. It deepens the story with them, but you can look at it on different levels.
Yeah. Well, they needed a cleaner narrative line. They couldn't be going off into mythological byways whenever they chose.
Yeah.
The cast that was assembled for your movie was phenomenal. I mean, it was an all-star cast.
Yeah.
Did they work cheap or what?
Well,
I mean,
the script
who could
was so
afford
good.
to pay them?
The script was so good, and they were what happened was that. The thing that changed this movie from being a very small movie into a bigger movie is that they had optioned the book. He had written the script, and Sony read the script and said, well, this is kind of an art house movie, and it's lovely, but we don't want to put any money in it because it's not going to do anything for us. And then the producers snuck the script out to a bunch of directors. Steven Spielberg was one of them, and he said he was going to make the movie. And that changed the whole tenor, the texture of what was happening. And once he said that he was going to do it, it became a big deal. And that's when things started rolling. Now, nobody was in the movie at that point, but he just, as my agent at the time said, I don't know if I should say this on tape, but he said, Spielberg's like a dog, he likes to pee on everything. And so he gathers up these projects and then eventually doesn't do them.
But the scent of that,
his
ambrosia,
exactly.
perfume, everybody then wants that, right?
Yeah, and then that's when people started being interested in it. After he dropped it, that's when it really got much hotter because it was a hot property then,
Right,
and
right.
that's people started coming on
It
board.
had been, as it were, touched by
Yeah,
Spielberg.
absolutely.
Well, they built this set in Alabama. Everybody loved that it was shot here. It was an event. It was a cultural event, but as an artistic event, you were in it.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I have not had a chance to ask you, what did it feel like to be in a Hollywood movie?
It felt really
You played an
great.
Auburn professor, didn't you?
Yeah, which was, what I would have done, even if I had my choice, I'm afraid. That's where my parents met, and the college neither of them graduated from. So that's the place that I would have chosen and it was in the book. So that was one of the things they were true to the book. Yeah, I was an Auburn professor teaching, I think, economics or something like that. And the really great thing about it was I had a little trailer. I had a person following me around, making sure my hair was combed exactly the same way from shot to shot. So continuity. And probably the most exciting part was that originally I did not have any lines. It was going to be this sort of silent montage as they crept across my face as I was teaching. But as I started to talk, because Tim Burton said, just say something to seem as though you're going to be recorded. And the things that I made up to say were so amusing to him that they decided to include lines in the movie.
What'd you say?
Yeah. Like I know. It was
Sure
something.
you know.
Well, it was something like, as you can see by this graph, the exigencies of the economy are, and then I turn the next graph and there's a drawing of something up there. Actually, that's not exactly what I said, but it was off the top of my head. You know what? You can go on YouTube and see it.
I don't have to go to YouTube. I open the TV guide, and Big Fish is playing on some channel. Oh, if not every day. Forrest Gump plays every day.
Every single day.
But Big Fish plays, I'll bet, once a week somewhere on my television set. So watch this, you're going to like this. In the movie, you played a college professor, and now you are one. And I was delighted to hear about you have been given, you were a lecturer at Chapel Hill teaching creative writing, and you've been given a chair.
Right.
But in order to qualify for the chair academically, what is it that you had to do?
Well, it's what many people have to do, is get a college degree, which I had not somehow, I failed to get at some point in my career.
Yeah.
I just had a couple of classes to take, applied mathematics and genetics, and I took those classes, and I'm done. If you would like to talk about base pairs, chromosomes and that sort of thing, I'm open.
Very much.
Yeah.
Yeah. Did you go, it was Emory, right?
I was at Emory for 2 years and UNC for 2 years.
And the classes that you took, did you take them in the flesh, in person?
In these last
the
two?
last two.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
Oh, you didn't take them by
I know what you're trying to say. No, but
what am I trying to say?
Trying to say that it was one of those like I don't know, Michael Jordan or graduation classes or basketball.
Two famous Alabamians finished their bachelor's degrees within the last year or so. You and Joe Namath.
I know. I saw him and I thought, gosh, if I'd only gotten this press. Nobody's written about
you
it.
got a shared professorship.
Yeah.
That's better.
Yeah, and I think it probably was based on my my part in the movie, that they saw I could handle it. They saw I could have that professorial persona. So
since then, and this is really a delight for everybody, but Big Fish, as big a deal as it was, has been followed by what I think is a stronger book, a better book, Mr. Sebastian and the Negro Magician. It is very hard to talk about that book in a simple way. It is about several things. It's about race and prejudice. It's about love. It's about magic, and it's about death. But you know all that.
Oh yeah.
But you did choose to set it, at least in part, in Alabama.
Yeah.
The race part.
Yeah.
Cullman, North Alabama.
Right.
Your home territory. Why? What would you do that for?
Well, I'm not in complete control of what I write and where and what happens when I do, and I'm moved into a kind of a comfort zone, a comfort zone of my own imagination, I think. And Northern Alabama, even though I'm really not from there, it tends to be the place that most of my stories seem to reside. So different parts of this book take place in different places, in Albany, New York, and New York City, and Cincinnati, I think. But most of it, the heart of it, does take place in that area. And as the story takes shape, you find the things that include the things that are going to bolster the story. And in this case, telling the story about Henry Walker, it was important that he be a Negro magician in that part of Alabama just before the beginning of the Civil Rights Movement.
Right. This is not a murder mystery, so it may seem as if we're giving things away, but since nothing is ever settled finally anyway, we can't give anything away. I could not tell an audience
Right.
what happens because I'm not sure
Right.
that I'm supposed to know.
Right.
He is your protagonist, Henry, is conventionally speaking, and you've just finished studying genetics, so you would know
Right.
this. But
Right. Yeah.
conventionally speaking, he is a Caucasian.
Yes.
He has disguised himself for years as an African American.
Right.
Why?
Well, his whole life is really defined by loss. And as a child, he loses his mother, he loses his sister, he loses his father, and finally, he loses his identity. He loses his skin color when he's taken under the wing of a manager who believes that he can sell him not as a Caucasian magician, of which there's so many, but as a young Negro magician. And so he gives them the right pigmentation pills that change his color to become a young, what they call the young Negro magician. And he changes his color again. He becomes an Indian, and he goes back to white. But eventually, his life is lost to him, and he doesn't even know who he is. And so he's going back and forth. And at the end of his life, he does finally stick with that in this circus that he ends up with that's touring the South. And in a way, I think of it as a death wish on his part. I think that he is doing it in a way to not live.
He chooses to be black in North Alabama, and chooses. I mean, that's which.
Yeah, it's a
people
choice.
don't.
It's a choice that he makes, and has a problem.
Early, and these questions are so simple-minded, I'm embarrassed, but I'm going to ask anyway.
Sure.
The manipulation of your reader is exquisite. You are constantly luring the reader down one road only to convince the reader it is such and such, and then, of course, it's not. Henry becomes a consummate technician to begin with, a magician. He learns from a man who is or is not the devil.
Mm-hmm.
Is he or is he not the devil?
You want me to...
The soap salesman
Right.
who first instructs Henry.
Right.
For long periods of time, I think this is a supernatural character.
Right.
And then he's a soap salesman.
Yeah.
Or both.
Right.
And?
Yeah. Well, no, that's the whole idea, the book is that he is and he isn't. And to Henry, certainly he is the devil. And there's no way that you could ever convince him otherwise. We see different aspects of this person and realize, well, were we to meet him in this different situation, he would not be the devil. But this idea that there is one reality that we all share, I think, is what the book, in general, tries to argue against. That we don't share the same reality. That we create it, solipsistically through our own experience, which cannot be shared really. It's all inside of us, and so I do believe that he is the devil.
To Henry.
To Henry.
For certain.
Yeah, certainly not to other people, to his sister.
Hannah.
Hannah. Yeah, he's a different person.
Right. Henry, as his skills become nearly miraculous, has an act in which Marianne
LaFleur. Yeah.
Marianne LaFleur dies and is brought back to life.
Yeah.
Or not.
Yes. I actually, some of my stories, are not true. That is, then that
Is that right?
yeah. I mean, in a sense that the story itself is a story about something else. And in this story, where he does in fact bring a woman back to life who was repeatedly dying. In fact, she's dying all the time, and he has to go and get her. Is really not so much about that, but is about his desire to be the savior of some woman. To help, he's lost all the women in his life, and he wants to have a woman that he can save, and Marianne's that woman.
Lost his mother, believes he's lost his sister forever.
Right.
Loses Marianne
Yeah.
Lafleur.
Over and over and over again.
Over,
Until,
yes.
Yeah.
He can bring her back from the dead with a thought, can't he? It's a kind of telepathy.
Kind of, yeah. Yeah, I mean, he kind of has to die a little bit himself, though, to get to that place where she is.
I asked you this once before, but there are a couple of writers who, I mean, you must have a powerful interest in magic.
Yes, I do.
Illusion,
Yeah.
the whole thing.
Yeah, I do tricks. and
As
stuff,
the,
yeah.
but
Yes.
the author is the magician. No two ways about that.
Yeah.
But do you read Robertson Davies, and do you think of The Fifth Business as a book that somehow informs the magic in this book?
Well, I think that they're keystone books for me, and I imagine it's with every writer, that are more important than others. And it's hard to say why. I think that it's timing. But The Fifth Business, that whole trilogy,
Yeah.
is very important books that clearly, they echo, in my work. The same can be said with, 100 Years of Solitude and
Yeah.
books by Italo Calvino. But Robertson Davies, that book, Fifth Business, was did have a big imprint on me. Yeah.
And there's diabolical magician
Yeah.
in there.
Yeah, it's one of the
Yeah.
best books. It's like the Magus, one of the really
Yes.
good magic books.
And the Thomas Mann as well.
Yeah.
If you read in the literature of magicians.
Yeah.
And there's a shelf of
There's
literature
absolutely.
of magicians.
Yeah, and I hope, I'd love for my book to be up there.
Your book is entitled The Negro Magician.
Right.
In a time in history when, well, the time in history, 2008,
Right.
when we're using African American.
Right.
Negro was the polite term,
Right.
and now somehow not.
Right.
And some of us have been discussing whether that didn't hurt the sales of the book.
Yeah, I didn't know what was going to happen. I knew that the title was, maybe we were taking a chance by calling it that, but I thought it could go either way. I thought it could either get a lot of attention for it, that unwarranted attention, that is good unwarranted attention, that people would be drawn to the book. But I do think that probably people were ended up being scared away by it. The title is, in fact, is the perfect title for the book, I think. Mr. Sebastian and the Negro Magician. In a book about illusion, in a book about what's real and what's not, there really is no Mr. Sebastian. There's no Negro in the book, and there's no magician. And he's not really. He's not. The question is out there whether he can actually do anything, in fact. And so, I felt like that was the perfect title. We tried to come up with something different. It is anachronistic, the word Negro, but the book takes place in the 50s when it was a very
Yes,
common
right.
appellation. So
Well, he goes to war.
Yeah.
Henry goes to World War II, where magically, even though he stands up in a hail of bullets,
Right.
he cannot be shot.
Right. Well, is that true? Did that really happen?
It
I
could
don't
have.
know.
Well, that could literally happen.
That could.
A lot of
yeah.
bullets can miss you.
Sure, it could happen. Absolutely.
Lately, a lot of authors have been killing off their serial protagonists.
Uh-huh.
Is Henry finished?
He's finished. He's done. I think it's a happy ending. I think he discovers at the end that after all he can find there's a place in the world for him. He's been felt as though his whole life he's been rejected by rejected by his family, by his father, by all the elements in the world have conspired against him. And at the very end, I think he discovers that, yeah, he is alive, he's a human, and the world is made for him to be a part of it. And that's where it ends.
He doesn't die?
Well, not before all the pages of the book run out.
Is that right?
He's alive at the end
Yes,
of the book.
he is, but my impression at that moment was that...
I don't think that if the book were 10 pages longer, that he would be alive on those 10 pages.
One word longer
One word.
is what I was thinking.
Yeah, maybe one word, yeah. A sentence.
Like, would be that word.
Yeah, or you could just use the end, and the book, the words the end, and attribute that to Henry.
The part of the delight of Mr. Sebastian is, for me, watching you, the author, the parallel between you manipulating the reader and the magician manipulating through illusion and misdirection his audience. That makes you the magus. That makes you the magician.
I think there are a lot of parallels.
You must have been a happy man while you were writing this book.
I don't know. I didn't know. I didn't show it to anybody while I was writing it, not one word, because I was so afraid that it wasn't good, and I was enjoying it. I was enjoying the story, but that's not always an indication of quality. And so I didn't want to stop writing, and I was afraid if I showed it to somebody, they said, "Well, this isn't really working out," that I would not be able to continue with it. So I didn't show anybody until I finished the whole book.
But now you bamboozled thousands of readers.
Yes, I know, and I fooled them into thinking it's a good book.
What was it you were saying about Elizabeth Spencer? She started reading the book and did what? She
read the first chapter and liked it so much she stopped reading it because she was afraid she might be disappointed in the rest. This is a great compliment. I loved it.
It is.
To be so fond of something, it's like being so in love and then saying, well, we have to leave. I have to break up with you now because I'm afraid I might be disappointed down the line. So it was great.
That might not be a bad idea sometimes. The last time I asked you this question, you dodged and weaved, and the question was, what are you going to do next? Mm-hmm. I know you're practically still on tour with Mr. Sebastian, but what do you have in mind? What should we be thinking about down the road?
You should be thinking about a book, a collection of words between two covers of some sort.
Yeah.
It would. I would like ideally to have a collection of short stories. That would be my because I've got a lot of stories that I'd like to be put together in a book. So that would, if that could happen, that'd be great. I'm halfway through a book about a little blind girl, and that might be something. And
2 glass eyes.
2 glass eyes. Yeah, I'm working up. Yeah, maybe her whole head's going to be made out of porcelain. No, she's got irregular eyes, and she might get her sight back. We don't know.
When and where?
Where
the book set where set when?
Well, all of my I'm uncomfortable with time, so I'm and place, and so I'm putting this one. There's absolutely no time and no place. It's kind of difficult to write it. Believe me, it always helps to have that sort of thing under control. But no, I do not know what time it takes place or where it takes place. It's fabulistic, I guess you'd say.
Timeless.
Timeless.
And
perfect.
And placeless. The first 4 books did have glass eyes. The first 3 books did have glass eyes.
Right.
Did I miss the glass eye in Mr. Sebastian?
As you said yourself, Don, I'm growing as a writer. So I'm trying not to have fake body parts in all my books. So I'm working past that. I'm working into something new and different. I'm not going to have, and I'll say it here on your show, I'm not going to have body parts in my books from now on. Everybody's parts are going to be real.
No
Maybe.
More. Maybe.
Yeah.
I don't believe it. I don't believe it.
Maybe that's a lie. Maybe
I don't
I'm
believe
making
it for
that
a
up.
second.
Yeah.
I have read a lot of your short stories and enjoyed them, and many of them are wonderfully funny, and so I'm perplexed. I know that short story collections don't sell particularly well, but
Right.
you have 4 novels
Yeah.
in print.
Yeah.
They're all in print too, aren't
Yeah.
they? Yeah. Seems to me that would be clout enough to get a story collection.
Well, yeah, and we'll see. I'm pushing. I'm pushing
Good.
for it. I'm pushing for it.
Good. I think also a collection like that is a way of keeping your name more often in public view.
We're on the exact wavelength. That's
Yes,
exactly.
and if
what
I owned a publishing house,
yes,
your
it's
short story
happening.
collection would be
I know. It would be
forthcoming.
there.
Well, this timeless, placeless, blind girl novel.
I'm hoping to finish it this summer, though. So
When you finish it,
Yeah.
I'm looking forward to reading it.
Great.
And when I do, I hope we can sit down and talk again.
absolutely.
Thank you for coming in.
Thanks, Don.